Hey.
Hey.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about Dune.
Dune Part 2. It's finally here.
It
and
is.
I gotta be honest, I just want to get into it. I want to talk about, spoilers. I want to talk about the first movie, this movie, how it compares to the book. Let's just do it.
Okay, but first, are you upset you didn't get the popcorn bucket?
I'm very upset. I had a
chance.
golden opportunity. And I had a golden opportunity Super Bowl weekend to get it half off too.
Yeah.
And I just it just wasn't right. It wasn't my golden path to get there. And I was I literally was it's funny. It was actually really weird because I love Dune. I love the book. I love this movie. But I was also am I just buying a meme? And there's something weird about buying a meme.
Right, but if it hadn't been a meme, do you think you would have wanted it?
No.
Okay.
I don't think I would have gotten because at the end of the day, what do I need with a popcorn bucket?
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
It's true.
I honestly, it doesn't have any use other than a
Storing
popcorn
things?
bucket. That's the thing, but it's I feel like
Yeah.
I have those things.
We do.
But no, I think it was one of those weird things where you sort of either buy the meme or you don't.
Yeah.
But I think it was ultimately good advertising for them, right? I mean, it was
Absolutely. I mean, they
was
sold out.
Yeah, it's true. It was something to talk about, and and I also think I don't know, we're always looking for that one little extra thing, right? I think I think that helps, especially with a movie that's kind of serious like that. But yeah, no, I didn't get it. I don't know. I do regret it, to be honest. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
what are you gonna do
what
now?
are you gonna do with that bucket?
It's just it's times in life, and you come to a fork in the road, and you pick it up, and you eat dinner, and that's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
That
That's
is
what I
one thing
learned.
you could do with a fork.
But so we saw an IMAX.
We did.
And
so worth
we
it.
got to see the first movie again in IMAX a few weeks ago. They did a re-release, so that was really cool to see. Both of them the way they were meant to be shown. And first impressions were that it was a pretty brisk 3 hours. I mean, the movie was long, but I didn't feel bored at all.
No, I felt way more bored during the 30 minutes of previews and other stuff that kept showing.
It was funny because normally I don't care, but the only way to get good IMAX tickets we did the 10:45 p.m. show. So by the 8th trailer, I'm we're never getting out of this movie theater. Please. It felt remember years ago back when Age of Ultron came out, we did that Marvel movie marathon in the theater and it was 2 days or something. It felt like that.
Yeah,
I
it
was
really
just
did.
No more. But it is what it is. I mean, I do love trailers, but I definitely just wanted to get to the movie at that point. I have been waiting for somebody to do
right by Dune?
To do right by Dune, to do something like this in a long time.
David Lynch's Dune has a lot of merits to it.
It does.
And
it does. I mean, I love a lot of it.
And when you really think about it at the time, it's it was a lot of the best they could do, especially because back then it's you really wouldn't think of breaking a movie up into 2 parts.
Yeah.
It's they could. Then there's the TV special that they did, but that's TV, and that was also at a time when TV didn't have quite the budgets, and so between those things, they never had the ability to do it right.
Also, the effects necessary to do a movie that big were so expensive at the time because CGI didn't exist yet.
Yeah,
and so and I agree with that, and also you got to remember they thought every studio, Peter Jackson had to pass in almost every studio that wanted to make Lord of the Rings because none of them would agree to let him make 3 movies up front.
Yeah.
And it's and you look at it now and you're of course they did that because it was the best idea ever. But back then the studio was no way, that's too much risk.
Yeah.
So it's you're right. There's no way like back in 1984 or whenever the first Dune the David Lynch made, there's no way they would have made him make it into 2 movies. And, it just goes to show that, they believe in the strength of the property and they believe in the strength of Denis Villeneuve to really, deliver. And, and it's such an interesting thing, too, because I have to give it, I really have to give credit where credit's due with the studio that made it, because, and everyone involved, because it would have been real easy after the first one came out during the pandemic and came out basically simulcast to HBO Max to be like, oh, I don't know, like, do people really like this? Is
Yeah.
it, because it couldn't have made a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And so I think that, like, the fact that they clearly pulled no punches for this movie. This movie looks humongous.
It does.
I mean, it looks really expensive. It everything about it, like, felt like, at a 10 or 11 when it came to just magnitude. And I really appreciated that. I mean, that's the main thing I thought of when watching this movie, is I was just like, are we ever going to top this kind of, like, way of doing Dune?
It's true.
You know what I mean?
It was done so well and so beautifully, and the actors are so perfect in the roles, and their performances are so stellar.
Yeah, it's funny. I totally agree with you in every way. I mean, I think, like, Timothée Chalamet he's a really good actor, and pulling off Paul Atreides is so hard because Paul's like 15, 16, like in Dune. He's very, like, shonen age, and that's
at least
really
the beginning of it.
In the beginning of it, and then he's pretty much, like, around, like, his early 20s, at the end of the book. But, like, pulling off having an actor that can pull off that age range but still be a hero and be a warrior and authoritative is really, really difficult.
Yeah, and it has to shift from that, like, that sort of vulnerable youth, but, like, smarter and more precocious, like, kind of like precocious. I don't know is a word that you use for, like, that age, but you know what I mean. It's like
maybe a little old for precocious.
Right.
Precocious is like a 4-year-old that points out something.
But I can't think of a better word for it.
Yeah.
Like, because,
naive?
No, because that's the thing. It's not about naivety. It's about, like,
a lack of wisdom.
No. That's why precocious is a good word, because, like, they like, they're a little more, like, vocally, like, about their smarts. Yeah. He knows a lot, and he, like, puts it out there, but in this sort of vulnerable way at the beginning, and then much more, strongly at the end.
I also think the thing about Dune that's so interesting that a lot of people, I mean, it's made very clear in the movie, but that a lot of people sort of forget is, like, Paul is royalty.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these stories, it usually goes back to Star Wars, and it's like the nobody.
Yeah.
Who all of a sudden is, like, a really fantastic guy. Spider-Man, like, most of our hero stories now are, like, normal Joes who become superheroes, with the exception of, like, Iron Man. And I feel like that's the thing with Paul Atreides. You have to remember is, like, he has authority from birth, being the Duke's son.
Right.
He's from a great house. He has, all of the training. He is destined to be a leader.
Yeah.
And so
not only does he have the normal training, but also the training from his mother that he shouldn't have.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's so cool about, like, Dune is my favorite messiah story of all kind of sci-fi messiah stories, followed by The Matrix, because it's, like, the convolution of everything that gets him to be the Kwisatz Haderach is so complicated that, like, I think it's, like, it's a real justice to getting there.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like Goku becoming Super Saiyan. They kind of build up the legendary Super Saiyan idea.
Yeah.
And then we as an audience have to see, like, Krillin get killed.
Yeah.
And understand Goku's relationship with Krillin for it all to pay off. They become Super Saiyan. It's like everything from, from the way the Bene Gesserit were messing with the bloodlines, to the decision Jessica made to have a son instead of a daughter against their orders, to Paul learning not only the Bene Gesserit ways from his mother, but, like, learning the combat he needed to survive from Gurney Halleck. Also, they don't really get into this in the movie, but in the book, he's also, like, a mentat, which is, like, a human computer, because they've outlawed computers in this world because of they basically had Judgment Day, like, thousands of years ago. Basically, what we're about to deal with AI taking over, they already dealt with that, the Butlerian Jihad. And so, like, there's this confluence of stuff, and then you have spice, which is this, drug that makes you that does all kinds of things. Yeah. But, in Paul's case, lets him see gives him prescience, lets him see the future. And it's just, like, the convolution of stuff, like, really makes it, in a way, it almost makes it more believable because it's so much.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to if it was just like, you're a wizard, Harry. It's like, I'm a wizard? You know?
Yeah, no, like, you've so many of these stories where it's like, you have the person and, like, all of a sudden they're magical.
Yeah.
And they're so good. They're too good at everything.
Yeah.
But it's like you said with Goku and stuff, it's like, you know, with Goku, not only is he, you know, an alien and is he special anyway, but also he trains.
Yes.
He's always training.
Yeah.
And so it always makes sense that he just gets stronger and stronger. And the same thing with Paul. Paul is, you know, he's always learning, always working, always, you know, trying to be more, trying to be better. And so between the training that he got from other people and the learning that he's done on his own, it makes sense that he is so much more, because not only is he just, you know, genetically predisposed to be more, he also works at it.
Oh, 100%. And he is pushed by his environment constantly. And that's the thing, in the ultimate push of the Harkonnens, you know, attacking and trying to kill all of House Atreides, that sort of leads us down the path of the end of the first movie to the second movie. So, yeah, I think, you know, when it comes to the second movie, the thing I found most interesting that they changed from the book, and once again, we're now like gonna go into spoilers, so if you're listening and haven't seen it and don't want to know, you probably shouldn't listen anymore. But they really, I feel like, adapted Chani's story to be more, not only I think more modern for audiences today, but also like I think better for an actor of Zendaya's caliber.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Chani is a great character in the book, but in the book, she's kind of like the supportive female lead. You know, she's there to help Paul, to support Paul, to be his love. Basically, she's a princess.
She is, but it's an interesting thing because, you know, like when he first meets her, she is kind of more than that.
Yeah.
You know, like she's a warrior in her own right.
Yeah.
You know? Once again, go back to Dragon Ball Z. You know, it's like Chi-Chi is a warrior in her own right.
Yeah,
when they meet.
Yeah.
But then she just goes and is like, you know, supportive-ish of Goku.
Not at all. She's like, get a job.
Right. but yeah. But what I'm saying is like, but she stops, you know, the warrioring.
It's so funny you brought up Chi-Chi, because I thought you were going to go with Saiyans. So that's really interesting, because there is a bit of like the Fremen in the Saiyans are very similar.
Yeah.
In that they're very strong, noble, you know, sort of people of you know, they're badasses.
But you know, so like I think, you know, obviously the book, Frank Herbert wrote an incredible epic story. I do think though that like I think some of these changes they make sense, especially for the speed up of the timeline. That's
the thing, right? Yeah, I agree with that. I think like you had to sort of make her a little more you know, not it's funny, she kind of has to do two things in this story. She has to support Paul because she has feelings for him and loves him, and also she like she told her friend like he's got sincerity. But she also does not believe in the prophecy.
Right.
Does not believe that their savior is going to come from the outside. She believes they need to save themselves.
Yeah.
And I think like that's really cool.
Yeah, well, and also, you know, she's from, you know, from a time with there is no hierarchy there. Like there is like, you know, a leader of the clan, you know, like but there isn't the same kind of, you know, dukes and emperors like hierarchy that Paul and you know comes from.
That's true.
So,
yeah.
And so I think it like a lot of it makes sense with the way that she acts and the way that she sees things. And again, you know, in the book with like it taking essentially 5 years, you know, there could be more of an understanding of what's going on in the political scheming and all of that. But in the course of the time it takes a sandworm to get across the planet.
Well, and I was really trying to understand the accelerated timeline, because you're right. That's the other big difference between the book and this is in the book. After they're attacked and they go in the desert and become one with the Fremen, there's like a 4 to 5 year period between that and when they attack, you know, and attack the Emperor. And so like there's a big difference in between him becoming one of the Fremen, them developing the prophecy, and everyone sort of becoming a big, you know, family, as opposed to this 8 months. And the only thing that I can figure out is that they wanted to not deal with the baby sister that is like completely like
too much.
Yeah, because the problem with her is like, and even though they did it's funny, they both didn't deal with her as like a little child that knows everything. That's basically Dr. Manhattan, but they also kind of do deal with it with her like already as a fetus being able to communicate with Jessica. And so I feel like but I think ultimately, like, you watch David Lynch's Dune, which does follow the book very closely, and and you have like the little like 4-year-old was Alia, I think her name is, like, and she like kills the Baron in the book, and it's like, it's Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the book earns it, and the movie would have earned it too, because you totally understand, like, the magic of the universe and the fact that it is all possible because of the water of life and everything else going on. But at the same time, like, you watch the David Lynch version, you're like, this is like an 80s drenched cocaine dream, right? Like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
This little child was like, I have killed you, Baron!
Yeah.
He is the Quetzalcoatl Haderach! And you're like, what is happening?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it's the problem with the fact that they just did one movie, that they they had to condense so much, and they weren't able to take the time they needed, whereas with this version you get 2-3 hour.
Yeah. I know. After a while, I was talking to my sister, who actually, to her credit, my whole family read Dune. I was obviously the last one since I'm a baby, but my sister was really like, I mean, really, what else changed? She was one of the people who really told me to read the book back when I was a teen, and I talked to her before we're talking now, because I was like, they changed a bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, boom, 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 boom. And, and it was all stuff I noticed, because it was all stuff, because I've read the book a few times now, and it was stuff I was like, but it was also stuff that I felt like was all like, I was okay with them changing. Like, there wasn't anything they did that I was like, how dare they? How dare you, Denny?
Yeah.
It was all stuff that I felt like either was compelling narratively, fleshed out the story, or gave us more as a character. Because, I think, going back to, again with Chani, I think the way they changed Chani does so many things for the storytelling.
Yeah.
Like, first off, there's this whole thing, at the end where, Paul basically tries to take the throne, and to do that he needs to have like, he needs to basically marry the princess, right? And the thing is, like, it's a political thing, and it's described that way in the book. And they had been together for 5 years already, he and Chani, and she understood his motivations in the book for doing that, because it was the only way to seize the throne. But like, there's none of that in this.
Well, and this is what I was talking about with talking about her before, about how, like, she doesn't, she doesn't understand the political machinations. She doesn't understand the need for this hierarchy or any of that stuff. And because of the time frame, it's like there was no time for her to understand that. And like, so with Paul, saying that he'd marry the emperor's daughter, it's like it's comes off as so much more of a betrayal, because it's like, I love you, I'm marrying her,
totally.
And it's like, and that happens, it's such a short period of time, and honestly their love was just blooming, rather than it being a solid thing where it's like, oh yeah, no, we are solidly like a unit, and like this person is going to be like, just essentially the emperor's daughter is the pawn.
Yeah, and it's compelling that way, but it also I feel like I agree with that, and I also think, it's interesting they went that direction, because I'm used to the end of both the book and David Lynch's Dune as being this like big, like, ta-da, heroic, we did it moment, And I would say the end of this movie is much more like a question mark.
Well, yeah, I think there's a real hope that they'll be able to go into more of the other books, and so you end it there, where it's like, it's an end, but it really leaves the world open, because there is so much more of the world.
Yeah, it's not at all like and that me and Chani are taking over the universe, and and they don't have to do what we do. It's like the houses aren't okay with it. We got to do this war, which was part of the book, but mostly it's like he has to deal with this this interpersonal relationship stuff, which is of equal magnitude to his revenge and his ascension, which I find like really interesting because it in a way makes it a greater love story than was there in Dune before. Because in Dune, the story, it's just like there's an acceptance of like Paul's destiny.
Yeah.
And in this, it's not at all. It's a real question mark of Paul's destiny, which I think is really interesting.
It is, and it's not, because here's the funny thing. So it's going to be a great thing for the Chani character, like in the future, for them to really build on that and allow for more emotional storytelling on that part.
Yeah.
But for Paul, after having drank the water of life, like he knows the future. He literally said, yes, she's going to come around. She's going to get it. Like, because he knows because he's seen it, but like he understands what the path is, but like, but it gives so much more for hopefully it'll still be the same cast moving forward, and they'll get to do more of these movies, and like
I'm thinking barring disaster for sure. I mean, the thing is, like, and Denny's already talked about that he has an idea for Messiah, but it's funny because like it must be so weird for a modern viewer who has not read the books, because like I once had a friend tell me that like every book is Shakespeare. Like, every book can be based on like a different Shakespeare story, but it's like every famous sci-fi thing is Dune.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Star Wars is the most obvious. Like Luke Skywalker is just the nobody version of Paul Atreides. Right. The Jedi are just mostly male Bene Gesserit.
Yeah.
But with almost the exact same powers.
Yeah.
The only thing that's more interesting in Star Wars is they have laser swords. But like practically all the good ideas in Star Wars are from Dune.
Yeah.
But then, you watch this and you're reminded also like all the stuff with the prophecy, all the Messiah stuff, all the Stilgar being like he is the one, is the Matrix. And then I can't remember I got onto this because there was something else that we were just talking about, but it's also like that it's just like some other thing. Like, so much of what we appreciate in science fiction was built upon seeing all the timelines.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen, the blue like god who can see backwards and forwards in time, is Paul Atreides after he drinks the water of life.
Yeah.
And this, and also the same as like, when Doctor Strange in the
like,
I've seen all the
paths.
It's like it's all Dune.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. It's like once you're like, oh man, like Frank Herbert, like he just like figured it all out.
He was brilliant.
And I'm not saying, listen, I don't know. I'm sure there were a lot of things that influenced him, and I'm sure not everything was like, but the confluence of all of this stuff, like that we know as the tent poles of science fiction, it's really remarkable.
Yeah. I think the other thing that really stood out to me, I think two performances particularly. Like first of all, like. So Javier Bardem as Stilgar he was awesome. It was so funny. He pulled off lines so well. Yeah. But Rebecca Ferguson and Austin Butler, their performances blew me away. Like,
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, so Lady Jessica, they do sort of change, her from the book. She goes a bit wild, like crazy, but the way that they do it is so brilliant. Like the calculating like measure of her, but also like she seems to be totally going off the rails, but she's making her son the Messiah. She sees that he needs to be.
Yeah.
And Austin Butler, his performance was just blew me away. The way that like he melded his voice to sound so much like the Baron,
like Stellan Skarsgård.
His performance was just so creepy, and it's like this is the kid that was like perfect for Elvis.
Yeah.
But, like, oh my god, the transformation, and and obviously the physical look, the physical transformation like that they did obviously helps, but his performance was the real transformation.
I agree. I thought he was spectacular. I mean, I'll start with Austin. I'll talk about Rebecca too. I think Austin was, I really felt like he elevated the Feyd-Rautha character.
Sure.
Like I've seen a few versions. Obviously, Sting famously played him in the David Lynch version, and he's a really devilish character in the book. But I think like both what they wrote and how in the extra stuff that Denny added, sort of like introducing him to him, was really helpful in making him like a really good antagonist. But ultimately, like, yeah, his performance was unbelievable. I thought, like, well, first off, the dude was doing like the Kubrick stare throughout the entire, which I've never seen a performance so full of the Kubrick stare. So you got to appreciate that. It especially helped because like he's got a really interesting brow ridge, and they shaved his eyebrows, so he looks so like reptilian.
Can you give me the Kubrick stare?
The Kubrick stare is like I'll give it to you. It's like kind of like the. You know what I mean? It's like the eyebrows down.
Yeah. It's
like I'll try to do it with the camera. It's like
he didn't even have eyebrows to do it with.
Exactly, because it's like it's the whole like you watch it. It's like Alex from A Clockwork Orange. You open A Clockwork Orange. When what's his name? When Barney, not Barney Fife. What's his name? When Full Metal Jacket, Vincent D'Onofrio, when he goes crazy, he's doing it. Famously in The Shining, he's like looking out the window, and so it's like the Kubrick stares are like it's a thing. But and his voice was amazing. I mean,
so good.
First off, we all know now that he can do more than the Elvis voice, which is exciting. But you're right. It's like he had this like super deep, gravelly, scary voice. It didn't sound anything like him. I thought he was great. I thought he was really great. And, Rebecca Ferguson, I feel like not only was she great, because she was stupendous, but I also think the writers finally did justice to Lady Jessica that they really couldn't do with David Lynch's Dune.
Mm-hmm.
With David Lynch's Dune, she was much more, sadly, the kind of, like, cryy, she wasn't as strong as she needed to be, because they just didn't use her in that way in that movie. And I feel like in this, like, she's so they made her almost menacing, which I never really got that from the book. But the thing is, the Bene Gesserit are menacing. They plot, they scheme, they're schemers, and I think like it's true to that, even though that's what is cool about this movie is like a lot of the characters are very gray. Like, even though you want to root for them, this is the first version of Paul I've ever seen that I'm like, he's kind of a dick. And this is the first version of Chani I've been like, wait, why isn't she like fully supporting Paul? Why is she all like, this prophecy is BS? And like, it's the first version of Jessica where she's like, we must manipulate them all. We will get the weak ones first. Yeah. And she's all like witchy, and I'm like, but what happened?
But she should be witchy.
That's the thing. She had to be.
Like it's sort of like Denny and they were able to bring out in these characters what they sort of like were written as, but not written directly as. It's like the undercurrents of the way like they were written, their backgrounds were written, their personalities were written. Those things were able to be brought out in the storytelling of this movie in a way that they like you said, like that they didn't even do in the books necessarily, like or that they implied in some ways but didn't really like go full on, because in the book it's like get to he's the Messiah, and books can be a lot more just talky on things, whereas the movie you need things that are more exciting, more extreme. And so like a lot of the things that scene where he came in and like
to the temple and he's like I run this bitch.
Well, and like it was the I am the Messiah moment where it's like, it's not just, Stilgar being like, look at all these things that make him the one, and everyone being like, you're the one. And like, he's like, he really like proved it and earned himself those followers.
Yeah, I loved that scene. It came out of nowhere, and I kept on going like, this wasn't in the book, but it totally made sense. He literally came in and alpha dogged the entire the entire like group of people in there, and he was like, listen, I'm the Messiah, I'm the war chief, like we're gonna do this. And I will say, like, it is a little funny because, like, Timothée Chalamet is not the most threatening guy in the world, and neither would Paul Atreides be, because he would be like in his early, well, in this he's like 16 or 17 or whatever age he is, and in the book he would have been in his early 20s. But either way, but I do have to say the Fremen language is really cool that they have in this, and the way he spoke Fremen language made him sound more badass and cooler than if he was just like, I'm the chosen one. We're going to,
Well, it was smart to do it in the Fremen language. It was smart you get that sort of deeper gravel to the voice. You get the sort of, like, there's an aggressiveness to the tone a little bit.
For sure.
And so, it comes off so much stronger because of that.
I love that scene too. The whole way it was shot, and the way, and when he like singled the one guy out because he could sense that like he was the most aggressive guy, and he just like totally dismantled him with his like psychic abilities or whatever. And I was just like, okay. But it's funny because he was the Quetzalcoatl Cataract, but they also didn't. I feel like they emphasized the Quetzalcoatl Cataract thing so much more in David Lynch's Dune, as if like it was like he is now Dr. Manhattan. He's now a god. And in this, it was more like, I joked to my sister, it was almost like he became less Dr. Manhattan and more like Kanye West. Like, he just like was aggressive and self-assured beyond like any reasonable sort of person.
Yeah.
He literally he literally went from like, I don't want this destiny to like, I run this. We're gonna go do this. Yeah. We're gonna take over. And I was just like, what happened, Paul? But it was because of the path, right? Yeah. He knew the golden path was the only way to win, and he knew that the only way for them to see him as a leader was him to be aggressive, for him to be self-assured, and for him to show that he essentially had magic, for lack of a better term, because they wanted to believe he was a messiah.
Yeah.
And I also think that, like, going with what we were talking about, I think the other reason that they changed Chani, and I might be going too much into this, so I might be wrong, but I felt like one of the things, having her be a person that does not believe in the prophecy, that doesn't believe that an outsider should be the one to save them, I really think that for an audience, she's sort of speaking up about the for lack of a better term, the sort of like white savior thing that we see a lot in movies. And we've been seen as a trope over the years. And that is obviously part of the original story. Though it's weird because you don't really, in a book, get a sense of like races per se. So I think like, I don't necessarily think that was exactly, I mean, I'm sure that was not what they wanted to do, but I think that like that there is an implication there of that. And so I think having her be a character that's like questioning everything going on here is also, I think, helps us as an audience sort of, sort of process that.
Well, it also, like, the way the storytelling goes, it makes sense because, for the longest time, Paul is also like, it's not a real prophecy. It's not real. It's not
propaganda.
Real. And though he takes up the mantle, it's not because he truly sees himself as the Messiah, even though everyone else does, including his prescient, womb sister. But like, he keeps on saying it's not real, and so she has every right to, like, honestly, by also saying it's not real, she's supporting him in that way, because she's supporting the goodness that he wants and the sincerity that he has, but she also fears that, like, what if it is all for power, and again, because of the compressed time frame, because it takes place in 8 months rather than 5 years, that's like, all of a sudden you have the situation where what else is she supposed to see? Like,
I agree. It's funny, I don't know if the compression of time was because clearly we can't make these people look older, or if it was just like, I don't know why, or like I said, it had to do with his sister, so they wouldn't have to deal with that weirdness. I don't really know why they did that, but I also think at the end of the day, like, it's more like interesting that they changed that as opposed to like, but I still think at the end of the day they added enough stuff that make me understand like that they did that because to deal with it. Like there was nothing to me that felt overall like what I would consider like a loose end, or that isn't somehow answered. Like I felt like everything overall was pretty. Oh, one more thing. Remember I was talking about everything is Dune. I want to mention this too. Is the end of season 3 of Attack on Titan when he was looking out and he was on the sand. He was on the sand and he was looking out and he was like, do we have to go and kill all those people to be free? Yeah. And he was starting to have like the memories of his past and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is Dune. I was like, he's Paul Atreides. This is Dune. Yeah, yeah. And it actually becomes more like Dune as Attack on Titan goes on. So I was like, damn, Frank Herbert is like a legend. He did it. So I gotta say the Shai Hulud, the Sandworm scenes were amazing. But we were having this conversation. Yeah. So the sandworms as like buses, essentially. Yeah. So like I didn't remember that. I don't remember that being a part of the book. Neither do I. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, so obviously, the holding on, like they can direct them, but they don't like, whoa, sandworm. Like they don't stop them. So I keep on like trying to figure, how did they get the little thing that Jessica was in? How did they get that on there? How did they get all of these like extra people onto each sandworm? Like, yeah, it's funny because it's something that like it shouldn't matter. It's just one of those things we just should accept. Well, but it's like they're so big and they're so fast. And they don't seem to stop. I was talking to my sister about it, and she reminded me, at least in the David Lynch movie, like after the first person rides and sort of steadies it, the other ones like run up and throw their hook and climb up. So okay. And so I guess like a pulley system, her. Yeah, well that's the thing. I think it is that. Yeah, but I was definitely surprised when like they were like riding her along and she was in her little pod, and I was like, what is happening? But I didn't remember that at all. But apparently that was part of it, or at least it was in the other movie. Because even Gurney like wouldn't have had the experience to be able to get up on his own. Like, someone give him a piggyback ride. I know. Yeah, but man, the Shai Hulud did look great. Oh, so good. I'm trying to think of anything else I wanted to mention. I mean, the casting was through the roof. I mean, good. I thought that Florence Pugh as the Princess Irulan was great. And like you believe her as someone who like wants to essentially be a historian, that like like she played the like, I care about like the almost educational version of the world more than more than political scheming. Yeah, no, she was more like, you're right. Yeah, she was very. I think you're right. She had that Nico Robin vibe. Yeah, because it's like, even though she's she has the Bene Gesserit training and stuff, like, and she is but she doesn't come off like most of them. She she has her own, like you said, the Nico Robin. Yeah. Like I wanna learn and write of the world. Well, she also, you could tell she's like, so privileged too, that like she's never had to really deal with anything other than like the Reverend Mother being like, making her do her homework or, whatever. But I thought she was great. I thought that, we were talking about Austin Butler and Rebecca Ferguson, like when she was talking to the fetus and she was like, yes, I know. Or even better, like when she was talking to Paul and she was like, your sister would like to know. That was so good. So good. And like that shot of her after she takes the water of life and she has the blue eyes and she's just, it's like so unnerving. And I was like, this is so great. I thought she was unbelievable. I'm trying to think any other standouts. I mean, I just thought like everyone was really great. I mean, Zendaya is always great. Timothy Chalamet is always great. I just thought everyone was really good, and I thought the movie was great, and I don't really have any problems with it. I mean, that's what's really funny is, while watching the movie, and I sort of talked about this in the beginning, but they're around the third act, there was a scene where they're like, torching the siege. And I thought to myself, like, this is the definitive version of Dune. Yeah. Like, they never, I'm not saying they won't, but they never have to do another Dune movie. Right. Like, these two movies, like, are so definitive. Like, like to get like it's almost like the confluence of things for it to get a Kritsak Haderach, to get a director as ingenious as Denis Villeneuve and as like premium as him. Like the only other guy in this whole industry that can stand up to him is a Christopher Nolan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so to get someone that high grade, to have like the budget, which is insane for a movie like that, and then to have like this cast of like Timothée Chalamet, who is born to play Paul Atreides, Zendaya, who is like it's like so many like double XP up from like what we could ever expected to have for Chani, to have, you know, Oscar Isaac, to have Stellan Skarsgård, Rebecca Ferguson, you know, like the Austin Butler. It goes on and on and on, you know, even a Christopher Walken. And I just think that like
Josh Brolin,
Jason Momoa was amazing. He was the only person adding humor into the first movie. And I just think that like, Javier Bardem, that's the thing, like everyone is the best actor currently working in one of the best stories by one of the best directors.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's amazing. It really is truly like amazing. And
like, I you know, Dave Bautista, like
Bautista's great.
It's so funny because like he got to be so just emotionally sad in this one.
He wasn't having he was
not having a good
Raban
time.
Was not having a great time. I just like couldn't believe it. Like just like both the movies combined, when you watch them, they're so fantastic, and I love that they took their time, they developed the story well. I'm actually kind of excited that like where they could go, because you know, Dune Messiah, the second book, I'm not getting anything away, but it's a little bit of a letdown. Like it's a bummer of a book, and so, but I feel like the way they left this one off, they could take the elements of Dune Messiah, but double XP it, so they get more into the war, more into the all the other stuff, you know, and the stuff between Paul and Chani sort of, you know, finding each other again. I think like it's funny. It almost felt like, you know what it reminded me of is the ending of one of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Because you remember at the end of all those movies, it's like Spider-Man saves the day, but he's not with Mary Jane. Like it doesn't work out with Mary Jane. Yeah. You know, which I guess is ironic since Zendaya played Mary Jane. And actually, now I think about it, it's almost like the last Spider-Man movie. Not really, but anyway. But I loved it. I thought it was really great.
And it's so worth seeing on the big screen too, because it's so beautiful.
It really is. It really, really is. And I just also loved like, it was so interesting because we used this big. Oh, also I just want to mention Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah.
Just like randomly like popping up as his adult sister. I thought that was awesome. Just if like we want to add one more like giant movie star that's like really like popular right now. But the other thing is I love that it was IMAX and it was like the biggest thing ever, and then like getting in all the micro shots of his sister's fetus.
Oh my god,
was so interesting because it was like looking at the smallest thing on the biggest screen. I mean, they almost got that with Oppenheimer, but it was much more like I thought interesting in this movie. Oh my god, though, I gotta be honest. The one thing that was a bit of a trigger alert for me was. I was not all about seeing the baby sandworm get euthanized for the water of life. That bummed me out. It's been a while since I've been that sad about what happened to a CGI creature. I think the last time was like Rocket's friends in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But that was a lot. That was a lot to deal with.
It was upsetting.
It was. But man, the movie was great. I mean, I pretty much said the entire movie, so I hope you've already seen it. But yeah, I don't know. Anything else? Anything else?
The cinematography is so good, and oh my god,
cinematography is amazing.
The choice of like going black and white.
Yeah,
during the Harkonnen stuff.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, that was really cool, and I like that they dealt with the fact that Feyd often fought, drugged guys like you would have in a Roman Colosseum, but also that he also can fight, like he fought the guy that wasn't. So I thought that was really smart. All this stuff too, all the like heebie-jeebies you get from the Harkonnens, like the fact that he just like, because he's sadistic, he just wanted like a harem of cannibal girls. Like that is like, everything about the Harkonnens is is the ick.
Yeah.
Like, everything about them is just not cool, man. Like, you don't want to go anywhere near Getty Prime or anywhere near those guys. Those guys are like, you know, I feel like if you were to make like a Game of Thrones version of like this, the Harkonnen stuff would be so bad. Yeah. It would be so vile because they're just monsters. They're absolute monsters. They are the sort of perfect degree of like when someone has ultimate power and can do whatever they want and everyone else is beneath them. Like they're the worst.
The choice to visually have them all be like so like hairless and almost like reptilian it really separates them even more and makes adds a like almost more like monstrous aspect to them.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, there was one shot that I thought was really weird and I just wanted to mention it. Yeah, because I thought it was really strange and maybe like a little too far. It's funny. I always find that movies and by the way, you can disagree with me on what I was gonna say, but do you remember the shot where they were talking about Feyd and blah blah blah, and then they were like the Harkonnen army, and it was like a parade of the Harkonnen army, and it just like felt very much like those like Nazi films from like the 1930s
because of the marching, right?
The way they were marching and in the vehicles and the whole way, it just like seemed very much like one of the I can't remember what they're called.
I feel like that was. Do you not think that was sort of what it was?
Oh no, I think they did it totally on purpose. Okay. But I almost felt like it was unnecessary. And what I mean by that is like, in Silence of the Lambs, when like you get down to Buffalo Bill's like torture basement, and it's like this guy is like abducting and starving women so that he can kill them and make a suit out of them, but he's got a Nazi flag too, so now he's real bad. It's like, you didn't need the Nazi flag. I think we're pretty set on the fact he's a horrible human being.
I get what you're saying, but I also think like it's
iconography, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and it's there's a lot of like army things that they show. It's not always it doesn't always have to be Nazi. It's just like a lot of that whole like high step like kind of thing. It's been a thing in a lot of cultures. It's just it's an aggressive. The whole thing is it's an aggressive army thing.
I agree. I guess it was the only thing. The reason it stuck out to me, it was the only thing that didn't feel elevated to me. Gotcha. Like everything in the movie feels like it's playing by its own rules. It's way above it. And
it almost didn't feel sci-fi. It felt
like the Kingsman or one of these like okay, like I get what you're going for.
I know what you're saying, but at the same time, it's like there are certain things that just they
hit, right.
Well, yeah, and they transcend like one genre or another. Yeah. It's like it is what it is. It's an army is an army sometimes.
I get it. And sometimes it's like. Sometimes I want to see a movie about trade negotiations and how that will lead to Darth Vader. I understand. No. Anyway, but yeah, no, I mean, I love both these movies. I thought they were great. I thought the fight at the end was great with Feyd. I thought that was much more, a lot more yikes than it was in the David Lynch version, which was cool. And I feel like even than it was in the book, it felt more thrilling. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we covered most of it. I'm really excited for the idea of doing another one.
Yeah.
And I really felt like, I think that was what most astonished me about this movie is I felt like they ended in a place that you clearly kind of think like, what's the next one going to be?
Yeah.
Which was really weird because I'm just, once again, so used to like the finality of the first book, both in the book and in the David Lynch movie and probably in the sci-fi series too, though I can't remember it. Though ironically the sci-fi series does do the second and third book.
Yeah. I mean there is more there and like it is kind of nice that there is the opportunity for for going beyond just the first book and that like the way that movies and franchises work and nowadays with the studios, it's like there was the ability to leave that opening for it. So I think that it's going to do really well, and I think that Denis will have the opportunity to explore doing.
I hope so. I hope so. It's funny too. Denis Villeneuve is such an amazing director, and I saw a really funny line where he said that He's never going to make another movie that's like a sequel to another director's work. Like, he still wakes up thinking about Blade Runner 2049, thinking to himself, why did I do that? But, you know, I was thinking about it, and I really feel like that was sort of his, like, his resume into making Dune.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure if he had just done Sicario and Arrival, if they would have, like, given him the budget for Dune.
Yeah.
I feel like you watch Blade Runner 2049, and nothing that he did was the reason people didn't see that movie.
That movie, God, watching that movie, it was so beautiful. And as something to watch, to look at, like, I could have looked at that all day.
Yeah.
As you know, a story, I don't care.
Yep.
Not one bit.
No. And it wasn't there, but it never was. And it was one of those weird things. I almost feel like sometimes, like, Blade Runner fan love is almost like it's Morbin time.
Well,
like does it exist?
It's not like it was a movie that was a blockbuster when it came out.
Yeah.
Like there's this, like, it's this thing that, like, people forget that it was not a hit. It is by cult status like a huge hit, but not by reality status.
I feel like maybe there's 10,000 people in the world that love Blade Runner and everybody else has heard of it.
Yeah.
But the 10,000 people in the world that love Blade Runner lets every person they know that they love Blade Runner and that it's a classic.
Yeah.
And it's the best sci-fi film ever, and that no sci-fi film is better than it. And everyone's like, well, I guess it's the best sci-fi movie ever. Have you seen it? Nah. Are you gonna watch a new one? No.
Well, and there's a lot of merit to, like, you know, to how much it clearly inspired that came
it
after
does.
it.
Oh,
And,
it's
you know,
great.
and like for people like me who watched it, you know, like, you know, after having seen so many things that were inspired by it, I was like, oh, I see how this was the inspiration for so many of these other things. But like, it was a great movie.
Yeah, it's great.
But yeah, it's not.
And that's the thing, and don't get me wrong, like, I love Blade Runner. I think the original Blade Runner is a great movie. But, like, just because I love something doesn't mean that it is very popular.
Yeah.
You know, despite what everyone on Twitter thinks, just because you like something doesn't mean everybody else likes it. And so so anyway, the whole reason I'm bringing it up is the fact that, like, you watch that movie and it looks perfect.
Yeah.
And it's done with such respect and such poise. It's got two of my favorite robot girlfriends in it. And it's got, you know, the most stoic of all of the Gosling performances, which is saying a lot because he hardly talks in any of the Nicholas Winding Refn movies. But alas. But I think really that was his calling card for them to believe he could make Dune. And so I think it was worth it. And if that's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anything else you want to say?
I want to reread the book, and I would absolutely see the movie again.
I would see it again too. I just thought it was really, it was pretty special. You know, I mean, I think that, I think it's a definitive version of Dune, and I don't think you're going to top it when it comes to making Dune work. And I do think, you know, if anyone's still watching and you haven't read the book, you should. The book is amazing.
100%.
I also think, like, there's enough difference between the book and the things that happen in these movies that it will feel like a good read.
Yeah.
You know, I love that
also,
sometimes.
Like, it's one of those things where reading the book gives you more insight into like the well, obviously what Frank Herbert was going for, but also it gives you more insight into some of the storytelling that happens that you don't get to see on screen.
Yeah.
But the way that Denis, you know, the way that the story is told in this, you don't need to have read the book.
No.
Like, you don't feel like you're missing anything by having not read the book.
You know, I'm glad you said that, because that actually, I think is the cardinal sin of the David Lynch version.
Mm-hmm.
I had read the book and then watched the David Lynch version, and I don't know what watching that movie must have felt like for someone who didn't read the book.
Yeah.
Because it is so accelerated, and they jam in, like, all the exposition from the book in that movie. So it's like, he's a Mentat, yes, a Mentat from Z. A Mentat from Z, yes, but not Thurfer Howard. And you're just like, what is anyone talking about?
What are these words?
And then they bring out these monsters, and they're like, they're a navigator. They had so much spice. Oh, the spice is life. And you're just like, what is happening? And I'm over here, having read the book, like, this is great. I love it. But, like, if I didn't read the book, I'd be like, what is happening to this movie?
Yeah.
And I feel like that, and I do feel like that is the one thing, to your point, that they did right by these new movies is, like, you could go in without having read any of them, and you're like, and you get what's happening.
Yeah.
You understand the story, and that's kind of like really important because you can't expect, especially like as decades go on. I think the first Dune was what, 1960, 1965. That's pretty like long in the tooth now for a lot of people to have read.
It is, but it's one of those that, like, because it's so deep sci-fi, it transcends the time that it comes from. Like, because there's nothing really in it that feels like of the time of the 60s. It really feels like its own world. And I think, like, it's one of the brilliance, like, things of the brilliance of Frank Herbert, the way that he was able to write, like, really immerse himself into this world that he created. And so like, when you read it now, things in it don't feel dated.
Agreed.
Because they are part of this story that he's telling of this other world.
He also did a thing that they never like to do in Hollywood, which is like, I think I first realized this when we were watching special features for Real Steel, which is like the weirdest statement. But they said, like, they wanted to make a movie in the future, but not so ahead that, like, it wouldn't be recognizable.
Right.
And that's what's cool about Dune is it's like 8,000 years in the future.
Yeah.
So it's like it really isn't recognizable, but at the same time,
it's not on Earth. There is no Earth. There is no.
But at the same time, because it's metaphorical and symbolic of humanity and power struggles, it is also very understandable.
Yeah.
Like, we understand how a feudal system works. We understand how capitalism, how power works. We understand how religion works. We understand how fanaticism works. We understand how occupying a place for their resources works and oppressing the people that are from that area. Like, all of this stuff is stuff that we still deal with all the time today, will be still dealing with 8,000 years in the future from now. I will say the one thing they didn't do in the book, in the movies at all, or maybe they mentioned it, but they didn't really go into it, is that spice is, they do talk about spice being necessary for the navigators, I believe, but I don't think they talk about that spice lets people live for like hundreds of years.
You're right. I don't think they really go that into spice. Like, it's about the production of it, how it's necessary but it's like they talk about it more in terms of how it's like people, it's the addiction of it. It's the people. It's necessary for the running of the empire.
Yeah.
But they really don't explain why. Yeah.
So, like, that's the main thing. So it's obviously integral to the navigators, and I do think they talk about that in the first movie.
Yeah, maybe. The thing is that, like, it's a funny thing because, for the book where it's the world, like, building that world and explaining that world, it's obviously a totally necessary thing to explain.
Yeah.
In the movie, with these stories that they're telling, it's okay to leave that out because it's just an extra thing. Well, because it's the necessity of having the spice for the empire to run smoothly because that's it's the production, it's the getting it out there to the people of the empire. But this is
it's like picking and choosing your lore because it's just like you'll bog people down with too much.
Well, and they can tell that in future stories as it becomes necessary, but it's not an element that the necessity is. The spice production, the spice must flow, but like it's not, you don't need to know all of the like nitty-gritty details because like the living, it's not relevant currently. It's not relevant for
and I think it's a little confusing too because I feel like maybe, and I could be wrong, but I feel like maybe like the emperor's a few hundred years old because of the amount of spice he has, but then it's also like how does that work with the Fremen? Because they like are exposed to spice all the time. Yeah. So maybe it's best to not get into it because it becomes a kind of then you have to start answering questions.
You don't want to have to answer.
Yeah. Exactly. Anyway, cool. Well, I think this has been really fun. I mean, even halfway through our conversation, I was like, maybe I didn't hit record on the camera. And you know what? Even if we didn't, I had a lot of fun talking about it.
Yeah.
I really hope nobody just listened to this thing on autoplay, not having seen it, and got spoiled by everything.
We did warn. We did.
I will say though, the movie's so big, and so impressive that also kind of wouldn't matter.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm thinking like we gave spoilers of things that happen, but like
it's not like we did it in order.
Well, that too, but also it's like you said, where it leaves off.
Yeah.
It leaves off in a way that it's hard to have a spoiler for the end per se.
Yeah.
Anyways, doesn't matter.
It's like a kid talking. It's like and then. It's like okay.
So good though. Go Dune.
It's great. It's great. All right, cool. Well, I don't know. I hope people watch this. I also hope, like, in the comments, feel welcome to correct anything we said. I mean, it's been a few years since I read the book, so I'm sure I'm light on some details. And and I hope people just talk about whether they liked it or didn't like it. If they like change, I think the things that will most I think the things that are most different from the book that people I think will either take umbrage with or is I think the differences in Chani. I really think I think
a lot of the people that are seeing it haven't necessarily read the books.
That's the thing. And I also just think that it makes sense. Yeah. And also I don't know, more Zendaya I think is always a good thing. So
and letting her really use her acting chops because she's fantastic.
Yeah, because I also think if she was just there to be like, go Paul, it would be like, wow, way to use Zendaya so well, in this performance. She's like, that's Paul's our man. Paul's our man.
That's my Messiah.
Oh my God. Oh, that's so good. That's like the new Fremen show. That's my Messiah. I love it. That's so good. All right, well, we can't top that.
No.
All right.